Welcome to episode 70 of Reading Between the Reels. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're a new listener, we're so glad you found us. If you've been enjoying the show, please tell someone about us, send a tweet, post to Facebook, write a review in your favorite podcast catcher, or just recommend the show to a friend. I'm Craig Dickinson, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Corey Heitschmidt, Justin Eldon. What's up, guys?
How's it going? We're here.
My man.
Justin.
My man.
Nice. And we're also...
cool, but I'm going to try.
No, not quite. We'll get there. We're also joined by returning guest, friend of the show, Anthony King from Force Ghost Conversations. What's up, Anthony?
I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells, he's never fought us, not us united. Thanks again for having me back on the show to talk about this epic movie.
Nice. Yeah, we're talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League, guys. I was mentioning before we started recording, this is one of the movies this is why we do the show. One of these movies. I love this movie so much. I think we're all pretty big fans of this film. So this may be a little bit of a love fest, just a little bit. That's kind of what I'm getting. So actually, we'll just jump in. Anthony, I'm gonna start with you. Overall thoughts on Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Well, I'm not sure how you could really, in a succinct manner, tell how much I love this movie. I mean, this was certainly a journey to get, and I'm thrilled that this film even exists because there's certainly a timeline where this movie doesn't exist. I was one of those people that came out of the theater in BVS absolutely loving that movie and hoping to see more exactly like that. And I got on the train to, I got so excited by the lead up to Justice League, of course, like hearing about all the casting, seeing the set photos, seeing the videos from the set, seeing that leaked video of Ben, from his Twitter with Deathstroke, teasing that next film. I was all on board for the DC extended universe at the time. And then, of course, as you find out, Zack's unfortunate tragedy in the family with his daughter's suicide, him leaving the project, Joss Whedon coming on, the horrendous film that is 2017's Justice League, and finding out more about the gross injustices that went on behind the scenes of that movie, that it's finally it's a journey up to this point. And I don't think I've ever in my life taken off work to watch a movie, but this was the one time in my life that I took off 2 days. It came out on that Thursday, March 18th of 2021. I took off both days, and at 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep that night. I watched it exactly at 3:01 a.m. as soon as I was able to do so on HBO Max, and I watched literally the sunrise as the sun was rising up on the other Justice League members at the end of this movie. Nice. So it's definitely a journey. It's a labor of love. I was there about the hashtag Release the Snyder Cut movement from the start. And have been supporting that and AFSP, which go hand in hand in this movie. So really, this is just an epic film, and I'm glad that it exists. Otherwise, I would be still fighting for the cause and hoping to get this movie released. But again, it's out. It's glorious. It's 4 hours long. It's exactly everything I wanted it to be.
Justin?
Yeah, so I'm going to leave. I don't have the same passion. No, I really, really love the movie. But I don't, that was beautifully said. I got goosebumps.
Thank you.
I do love the movie, and I'm so happy that we do live in this timeline that does have the Snyder Cut, because the 2017 Justice League was just so sad. So sad. I've said this probably a couple times on this podcast, but many times to Craig. I always get so hyped for DC movies. They know how to make a trailer. Whoever's making those trailers, they know how to make a trailer. And then when the movie comes out, I'm always disappointed. I overhype myself, and maybe that's partially my fault. And Justice League was no exception. I went to go see it with my wife, and I remember coming out of that theater just being like, "Oh, darn it, they did it again." Because I felt like they were trying to take the success that was the Avengers movie, and rather than building up to the Avengers movie, they wanted to almost like launch the universe with the Justice League, even though there are already a fair amount of, I think it was 4 DCEU movies, or maybe 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the fact that this came out and it was miles better, and how different it was, because sometimes you see director's cuts or extended versions and you're like, oh, it's mostly the same. We got like 2 or 3 more scenes. And there's a couple of exceptions to that. This, Lord of the Rings, and Batman vs. Superman, like vastly different movies. But I think this one, it not only changed like the plot, but it changed the characters. It added characters, like it removed characters. That little Russian family just completely gone. Was probably just died right off the bat in this universe. I don't know. No, great movie. I have my criticisms, but overall, love it.
Corey.
All right. Listen to this. I'm telling you what, this movie is brilliant. Zack Snyder put out a masterpiece. And I'm gonna tell you, I went into the 2007 just like Anthony. I came out, I liked it. You know, it had mistakes. It was 2 hours. It was not epically told. It was rushed. He threw in some campy jokes, you know, tried to make it an Avengers Marvel type humor. And I left thinking, and this is the thing. I love these movies, these DC movies, this lead up to this. And so I'm a fan. And so in doing so, I find it very hard to talk bad about a movie because I'm like, you know, I want more of these and there's more stories to tell. And you're going to have some good stories and some bad stories along the way, right? And as a fan base, I want to stay loyal there. But after watching the Snyder cut and then watching the Whedon version, you can't help but go, oh my gosh, I see exactly what happened here. And I think that's the thing. I took this very differently. I didn't just go back and rewatch this movie. Because I have HBO, I put on my internet, I put HBO's version. I had Justice League, Snyder cut, and then I had Whedon, Josh's version right there at the same time. And I clicked play at the same time, and I would pause one, pause the other, and let the scenes catch up. And I'm going to tell you, there is a college course somewhere that could be taught with this about the decisions that these two directors made. Because you watch in history, we've never had a movie come out, hit the fanfare and take such hits. And then the fan drives it to say, get Zack Snyder back in here to finish his trilogy. He does it. He makes it. And the fan base still frothing at the mouth for more of him. And I got to admit, the only problem with our universe that you guys are saying, hey, in some timeline, this didn't happen. In this timeline, it did. The problem with this timeline, we don't have the second one, that we don't have another one from Snyder. Justice League 2, Darkseid should be here. I should have the Nightmare movie. I should have a couple more Ben Affleck movies. I'm going to tell you that right now. And so I think when I watch this side by side, it becomes apparent about the struggle that you see. A movie is not made or broken with just who the actor is, how they carried, who played Batman, Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot. It's not made or broken on them. The decisions the directors make are so apparent when you watch these side by side. Color, angle, conversation, slipping in just a different little bit extended cut of this version, bringing in some more character building. All of that becomes apparent. And that's why I think somewhere along the line, and Craig, it may be you who has to go do this. You have to go teach this as a course, a college course, Snyder cut versus Josh cut, and have them side by side. It should be required watching. I mean, it's going to take a semester and a half to do it because you have to pause them both. But I'm going to tell you, that's what makes this so good is when you watch one as a fan, you fall in love with the Snyder cut. And there's even some things when I did this that made me appreciate the 2017 version. I was like, there's a few things in there. I was like, I did like that. But still, I go back to Zack Snyder. This is his passion. This is him concluding his trilogy, Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and then coming in with the Justice League. It makes those three absolutely breathtaking. The setup at the end of this one to where we could have had Deathstroke, Lex Luthor, set up for the next one, Darkseid. I mean, where he could have taken this, I need to go to that timeline. I need to switch because I think that would have been an absolute second brilliance that you could have just had that would surpass everything else for me as a fan.
So we're not the prime timeline. Whichever timeline has Justice League 2, that's the prime. We need to get there, guys. That's our
the
goal.
Sacred timeline. The Snyder timeline.
The Snyder timeline.
Mm-hmm.
The whole timeline's
Where? Someone call Zach. Where's
the
he at?
only difference.
I got to take a beat. Yeah, I just want to echo pretty much everything you guys have said. And I think that we also have to keep in mind, COVID has a big part of how this movie even gets made. I mean, because like HBO Max needed content like this, And as much as I would love to say this is the cut we would have got theatrically in 2017, there's just no way. And I'm fine with that because I'm the guy that like you, Justin, you mentioned Lord of the Rings and the extended cuts. Like, give me more of that. I will take my time with that. I love the slow burn. I would have watched an 8-hour version of this film, but it's not, it's not consumable in the theaters that way. Like, this is perfect for home viewing, especially when you can't leave your house and all of those things. So it's just kind of this confluence of events that has to happen for this to work. And I'm so glad that it did, because I think it was Anthony, you said you walked out of Batman v Superman, you're like, yes, I love this movie. Like, I didn't understand why do people not like this movie? I didn't understand that. And then seeing the extended cut, the 3-hour version, like, this is even better and more of that. And then, the theatrical cut doesn't quite line up tonally. There's some things that don't quite fit. And then the way this one goes back to Batman v Superman, and we see Superman's death from a different angle and the effect that it has. And it's like, this feels like such a natural connection. Like, I could just watch this all together in one sitting. Like, it's a mini series. All three of these movies fit so well together tonally and aesthetically. And I was just so happy to see it. Like, this feels, that's the only way I can really say it. This feels like a natural extension of Batman v Superman.
Wait, you said all three movies. The first one being Superman?
Man of Steel.
Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, Man of Steel, BVS in this.
Can I echo that, Craig? Because when you watch them side by side, the beginning of Zack Snyder cut is the Superman's scream going out and tagging the mother boxes.
Oh, yeah.
And that the mother boxes activate, which gives them a reason to activate. The Kryptonian is dead. It's mystical. It's magical. It brings it in such a strong, powerful way to connect back. This is the next chapter of this story, not here's a new movie. We brought our characters back. Right. And Zack Snyder does a great job of doing that. The 2017 version, it's Batman on top of the building, and all of a sudden he's investigating these bugs that are fed on fear. Still, I will say that scene with Batman right there is absolutely incredible, watching him swing around and doing that. It is very fun. And Ben Affleck's poses in that are incredible when he's using his grappling hook through that. It's wonderful. But it doesn't quite have the same hit as an intro. It doesn't do the same thing that they're investigating Lex Luthor's sketch drawings of craziness. It turned Lex into a Joker instead of a maniacal man than more than who he was. And so it wasn't the same. And so the buildup that Zack does and leads up, and then we get the Wonder Woman intro is so much better with the death, just tying back to those movies.
Mm-hmm. I do wish they would have found a way to incorporate that rooftop scene with Batman where he's interrogating the criminal in order to get the what are they called now?
The parademons?
Parademon to
talk. The parademon. I would have liked to have kept that scene, maybe just not as an introduction. Yeah.
Well, like I said, at the end, I want to ask what are some things that we would have liked to have kept from that one, and that there is some good, I think, definitely in the Whedon cut. I want to say too, and this, I don't know where else to put this, but speaking of mother boxes, there's a deleted scene on the Wonder Woman Blu-ray that shows them, they're about to go, she's gone, but the rest of her team are going to go and they're going to go find a mother box, and it's not in the film. And that just annoys the crap out of me. It's like, what were you guys doing? You had this perfect post-credit scene that you could have, in this movie would have been, released before Justice League, that completely ties in to what you're going to do in the next film. And that doesn't happen. So it's like, there's just missteps all over, missed opportunities.
So I will say to that point, Craig, from what I've learned from the Release the Snyder Cut Twitter account, is that there actually was a different post-credit scene filmed for that movie, which was supposed to tie in more, which was them seeing from Hippolyta's point of view, like her getting an alert that the mother box is awoken.
Dude.
And I'm like, give me the Jenkins cut. Where's that version rather than the crew at the end of that movie going to find the mother box, which doesn't really line up with what happens in Justice League where the Germans find it from World War II.
Well, and I want to, maybe it has something to do with streaming rights, but I feel like that would be some easy content creation and like an easy buck for a lot of these streaming services to just like release director cuts of these movies people already love so much.
Yeah. And they're doing that in a negative way. I mean, we're recording this on June 7th, and today there was some stuff about French Connection. I don't know if you guys saw this, that they're removing like what's supposedly offensive content, like some racial slurs or whatnot from a movie from the 70s. And like, it's not in there. It's not being, it's not being praised that it's in there. It's not supposed to be good, but things are being manipulated already. Mostly they're taking things out, but why couldn't we start putting some of this stuff back in? You already bought the digital copy of Wonder Woman. Hey, let's upload, that scene. Let's do that. Can we have that? Can we have more stuff instead of taking away things? Okay. They have the technology, but they have yet to do that.
To that point too, I mean, might as well release David Ayer's Suicide Squad, the real version.
Please, come on. Yeah, absolutely.
Which also lines up better with Justice League than what was released in theaters.
Yes.
Is this a problem, you think, when studios do this direction by committee? Because it seems like with Snyder, I mean, they told him he was dark. They told him, and his movie is darker. The color, the lighting, we're going to get to the cinematography. It is darker. And maybe Josh went in there and was told, here's what you're going to do. You're going to do some of these things and lighten it up a little bit. I mean, is it just by committee that they're doing these things? Because
that's what I've heard from Affleck saying too, that it was
really a lot of Jeff Johns coming in there and John Berg, and the AT&T takeover really didn't help with that. All that thing at the same time.
It should serve as a warning.
Just influenced by the MCU in its existence, like they're
just that's why you hired Joss Whedon.
MCU.
Yeah.
Yep. And you don't want to replicate that. You need to come out with your own thing, because you're not going to outdo the MCU. You need to find your own little group of people to appeal to and own style. And I think that's what Snyder did.
Agreed. So let's start talking about what Snyder did with cinematography. And Anthony, I'm going to come back to you for composition, color, camera work, just a couple of things that you want to, this is my biggest section by far. So try and pick a couple of things that you want to talk about in that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, this has my favorite Batman shot of all time. That's where I really want to start with this. I love him being on the gargoyle when he's looking up at when Gordon's looking up when they're on the rooftop there and the Gotham police station, with him with the lightning going in the background. I could watch that on just a loop all day long. That was in the first trailer or the second trailer. I think the second trailer for Justice League back in 2016. And as soon as I saw that shot, I was like, this is everything I've ever wanted from a Batman image. This is the Dark Knight. This is everything I could ever want. And of course, in the 2017 version, for whatever reason, that is messed up with some cloth in the way. Like, they completely ruined the shot. I have no idea what the thought process behind that one was. Rather than showing probably the coolest image of Batman I've ever seen in my life, with Affleck in full form, then he does that great landing right onto the rooftop after that. I mean, golly gee, that's incredible. Composition, I mean, of course, it's a Snyder film. It's going to be dark. There's dark tones and all that stuff all throughout the film. But of course, as the movie goes on and things start to change, it starts getting lighter and brighter. Of course, I think the Superman return is probably one of the greatest moments where it shifts to being a more lighter. It takes place in the daytime, right? The literally rising from the dead and all of that, which I think is really cool. And the camera work is really interesting. Again, I think we can talk to length about maybe you guys like the 4:3 format of this movie. I personally love it. I think that the IMAX format is perfect. I would love to see it on the biggest screen possible, which I know people got to at SnyderCon a couple weeks ago.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why do you like that aspect ratio? I was trying to brainstorm, because I'm sure somebody likes it. You might be that somebody.
I like it. I mean, the black bars don't bother me, and the fact that I get the full screen image is incredible. Like, I don't know if you've seen the remastered BVS edition that has incorporated the IMAX footage into that as well. It's now the version that's available on Max, as well as on the 4K if you buy it. And I have the Blu-ray to compare it against too, and just the fact that you get so much more of the image in that. Like, if they were to crop out to a regular, whatever the 16:9, whatever it typically is for standard format widescreen, it would cut out so much of the image. And I, just a fan of wanting to see the entire thing. It works for me. It's never really bothered me to begin with, and I hope that more directors start to utilize that type of thing in the future. I know that Disney has done it with the IMAX supported formats for the MCU films that they now have on Disney Plus. So it seems to be like they're starting to incorporate it more, but Zach's really the one that's gone to the fullest of utilizing as big of an IMAX screen as possible. I mean, I don't even know if there's a movie theater that that could really format it in the best case, other than like a few IMAXs that are like 200 feet or something like that. I mean, it's just incredible. Yeah, I love all this. I think Fabian Wagner's cinematography work throughout this film is incredible. And unfortunately, he's one of those people that had to work on both films. So he had his work cut out for him dealing with the both directors' styles in terms of cinematography and how their approach to filmmaking is. But I think it overall works for me in the cinematography of all this. I think it's just an absolutely beautiful shot film. Some other sequences, I love the Aquaman where the water is collapsing over him as he's jumping off once he's down that whole fifth of Jack. The Superman, when he wears the black suit again, and the doors open up similar to the first flight sequence for Man of Steel. The most hope and optimism I've ever gotten from a single frame of footage is that one right there. All that, I mean, I could talk forever about great moments of this movie and cinematography and how it plays off of that. So I'll pass the baton off, but that's kind of where my brain goes. Again, I want to highlight that Batman shot again because I love it.
Yeah, I had that one too. Justin, I'm going to go to you next.
Okay, I feel like this always falls on me, and I'm gonna do it, guys. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be critical. I'm gonna say critical things. Again, overall, love the movie, so I feel like I have to nitpick just a little bit. But while this was a 4-hour movie, I feel like it could have been a 2-hour movie if we just didn't have so much slow-mo.
It's only 24 minutes.
I was going to say, there's only a few, yeah.
I don't believe that number. I've read that number, and I don't believe it. But 24 minutes of slow-mo is too much. I understand doing it for the Flash because it's like it shows.
Yep.
I'm okay with that. But if everything, okay, not everything. If 24 minutes is in slow-mo, it almost like takes the specialness out of what they're trying to do. Like you go slow-mo to show like dramatic sequences, and it was almost just like, okay, I'm not feeling the same emotional connection to this as maybe I should because of the slow-mo. Especially, did you guys watch it with subtitles by chance?
I did.
Okay, so the Ancient Lamentations.
Yeah.
Anytime Wonder Woman showed up, like, oh my word, Ancient Lamentations with slow-mo. I'm just like, please
17
stop.
times. I think that phrase
is it
comes
17 up. Times? My word.
I think so.
The frustrating part about that is like she already has an amazing theme. You could just use that more often. Everyone
it's the
loves
beginning of that theme. Yeah, it's keying it up.
I don't like it. Anyway,
I was going to get to that for sound, but it's okay. It's perfect time because you do see it on the subtitles.
I get to that sound. I got that too.
Yeah, and every time subtitles Ancient Lamentation, I'm just like, but I will agree with Anthony. Like there were so many Batman scenes, especially like you said, the one where he's up on that gargoyle, where it is just, I love that Batman so much. It is, in my opinion, the best looking movie Batman we've ever gotten by a mile. Just the costume, the way it interacts with the light, the way Ben Affleck fills that suit out, like he's a big dude. And then it just works so well in contrast with the other suits as well, because they're all kind of dark themed, but his particularly, just like I said, the way it hits the light and the way it sets a scene, like almost every time Batman walks into a scene, you can feel it. It just kind of like gets a little bit darker tonally and optically, I suppose. But and then everything Anthony said, just it's Zack Snyder. It's going to be a dark, gritty movie. You kind of have to go into that expecting it. And the dialogue, I feel like in the Snyder version fits that dark theme quite a bit more than Whedon's like campy humor, which is, it has its time and its place, but it didn't fit the color palette of the movie as much.
Corey.
Yeah, I mean, so I think for composition, we all know Schneider's got a very different set of color and tone on it. The story itself is darker, not just the theme, but the story, the plot is darker. There is not nearly, I don't even remember if there's as many punchlines or little things that do, but I will say Schneider does a brilliant job of making some things pay off, and with the slow-mo to do that. We'll talk about that, but the color, the tone, the darkness, but I think the other part is Schneider brings in a lot more Like there's blood in here in the Snyder version that you don't get in Josh's version. And the bank robbery scene in the very beginning,
Yep.
Wonder Woman flicks a guy across the room into a
Oh yeah.
wall, and his head splatters into the wall, and there's a stain
Yeah.
on the wall in the Snyder version. The guy
Mhm.
comes up, grabs that rifle, and he's going to shoot all the hostages after she blows up the briefcase.
Those poor
And right
school
behind
children.
him, you see the splatter on the wall in
Yep.
in Zach's version. Josh's version, it's not there. It is. They didn't put that in there. They covered it up, or it's. We're not going to go there. We're not going to make that darkness. And then in Zach's version, you see her blow that whole side of the building out, and the rubble hits the cops down below. As she kind of has to execute the guy. In Josh's version, we just fade to white.
Yep.
Oh, and then we go to the next scene. And so there's a choice here. There's a choice in I'm trying to make this. I know what happened, but I'm just going to allude to it. I don't want to show my heroes being executioners. And in Zach's version, my heroes have to. This is the guy who Superman had to snap Zod's neck. Batman was about to spear Superman. So this is gritty. This is dark. That in your composition and what you're making in your movie. So, and I think you go to the one thing in color that stands out to me the most between the two versions in the Batcave when they're all talking about to bring back Supes. Batman is wearing a black shirt in Zack Snyder's version, and in Joss's, it's a white shirt and it's a tie. Very different. And they're having their conversations and they're doing all this, but that is not we were able to change the color digitally. It's entirely different conversations. It's entirely and they do it on the plane coming back from Aquaman. They have an entirely different conversation between Alfred and Batman. And so in some of this, I don't believe that it had to have all been, we brought them back and did some reshoots, because I don't think they reshot all of that. I think it had to be, Zach put in so many different things that, okay, I could take the story here. I could take the story here. He must have. And then Josh used some of it, but the tone and the conversations and the color make those scenes so different with what the directors do. And then my last thing I'm going to say for camera work, this movie absolutely, Snyder's Justice League sets up hero shots for these guys in the most magical way. Every single one of these characters gets a hero shot, and even side characters get a hero shot where there's some slow-mos, there's some poses. Batman, of all the Batman movies, I don't care whether people are like, oh, I don't like Batfleck, or I don't, Keaton's my man, or Christian Bale. If you get this Batman pose on any of your favorite Batmans, you'll sing all day long because how great that is. The poses that Zack Snyder gives him. And when Batman descends on his grappling hook everywhere, flying on his grappling hook, those are beautiful shots that he does. So this movie just does an amazing job setting that up, giving each one extra time. And some of I'm going to tell you, some of the extra time in the movie, there's entire conversations where I had to pause the 2017 version and it was a good, huge 3-4 minute addition of conversation and comments. And in the Supes where they're bringing Superman back, they walk through that entire Superman ship, and you see all the Superman suits coming out and do that. Josh Whedon's version, they just like walk into the cave and, oh, look at this. This is amazing. And they skip all that. And that's a good 45 seconds of extra stuff. So they do that camera work adds some of that. But yes, there is a lot of slow motion.
So many good things. So I'm just going to pick out just a couple things that I don't think you guys have talked about yet. But I do want to go back to that conversation about bringing Supes back, because to me, that was one of the key things that was very different in this version, in the Snyder version. But first off, you have the rotating camera, and I've seen how they do it, which is amazing. So you just have that circle pan. It's completely following all the way around. But I think it feels much more like it's a group decision because they keep focusing on everybody. Like that's the point of that scene. Whereas in the theatrical version, it's like it's all Batman and he's way out of line to do it, and then he and Wonder Woman have a fight, for crying out loud. Versus it just becomes this very natural, this is what we have to do, even if we have to activate the mother box and that's going to call Steppenwolf, like we have to gamble on this. And I just love how much more organic it is. in that version. And I think that the camera work was already telling us that they're all on board doing this. They're finishing each other's sentences. And so
Greg,
we completely missed the point of that.
can you explain? You said something about the camera work, like going, while they're all discussing around.
Yeah,
the
so
box?
so
like
the
Knights
camera
of the Round
just
Table,
keeps,
yeah.
like circling all the way around them.
Gotcha. It reminded me a little bit of, and maybe it's because both of these have extended versions, but like Lord of the Rings and the Council of Elrond.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's all like centered around the ring, and it's going like the mother box is a stand-in for the ring there.
Yeah.
And everyone is just making the decision based on this, like it's almost like a you can either make a bad decision or a really bad decision. Like those are your only options.
This is our best bad option.
Yeah,
to pull from another Ben Affleck movie. Isn't that what the line is? I think it is from Argo. But I'm so glad you didn't steal the one I was going to say, Anthony, about Superman poses and shots, because I had the one where he's in the black suit and he's like in the Jesus Christ pose.
I had a feeling you'd say something
absorbing
about that one,
the
so
sun
I'll let
as
you
the
have the
music
glory.
swells. Oh man, that is such a great. I'm getting chills just thinking about that right now.
Flight 2.0.
Oh, it's so good. And then I had that for, we'll get the sound. I'm going to talk about it again when we get the sound. The camera is so dynamic in this. I really love the shot when we see the Wonder Woman intro, where that's like, it's starting on like a bird's eye view looking down, and then it swings around. The camera just keeps moving all the way through this. I also had the low angle looking up at Batman. Just so good. I have to assume too the extreme close up of the whiskey glass is a callback to Jurassic Park, because it does the same thing where Superman meets Alfred for the first time. And
I love that scene, by the way.
So good. I'm going to throw in one more slow motion for you, Justin, because I do think that this one actually it does. It actually serves a purpose. And it's
okay. Let me just clarify here. Well, I'm not anti slow motion.
No, you just said it was overused.
I thought it was overused, and it was one of those things that, like, once I noticed, I'm like, they're doing this a lot. I'm like, oh, great, now I'm going to notice it every single time.
Okay, so this one.
Whereas if I didn't notice it, I don't think it would have been too much of an issue.
Well, this is the part where they're inside what was the dome, and there's this near freeze frame where you actually see Wonder Woman flying. It's like this pause on all of them, and this is where the only time we actually see her flying outside of Wonder Woman 84. So. Yeah,
you see her one point after the bank robbery. She flies up to get rid of it. But in the Whedon cut, she just jumps and throws the suitcase.
She does it at the end of the first Wonder Woman.
Technically, in the Doomsday fight, she's flying a little bit too when she
leaps
to go after him.
Oh,
but yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I said
I don't
corrected.
know what's the difference between flight and just like a really big jump.
But again, that's that hero pose
horizontally though.
Yeah, she's horizontal.
The hero shot of the team was brilliant.
Yeah,
and that too. Yeah.
So that's what
of the slow motion where they're all flying, where she's flying, Aquaman's jumping, the Flash is running, and Batman's in the car, and they're all driving. That was an incredible slow motion shot.
Yeah, and I could talk all day about just the cinematography, but we should probably transition down to sound.
We could.
So Anthony, I'm going to give you first crack again on soundtrack, effects, voiceover stuff.
I'm going to devote my entire time to the glory that is Junkie XL's incredible score for this masterpiece. I mean, frankly, I think all the 4 hours that he devoted to creating music for this movie is just a wonderful feat in itself. I own the vinyl downstairs, all 7 discs of it. It is just incredible. I love putting it on. It's a great way to spend a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, just having that thing on the background while you're watching sports and enjoying life. I love the new Batman theme that he brings for this movie to show that there's a character difference from the character in BVS, the darker version that is now more reformed by his experience with Superman. The boom, 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 boom. Love, that is incredible. That theme slaps, to use a phrase that the kids are using these days. I actually do love the Ancient Lamentation. I like it too. That works for me. I like I've heard him explain it. It's like making it more, the Amazonians have been here forever. Wonder Woman is an older character, right? She's one of the oldest characters in the world at this point. And the fact that, he just wanted to showcase that this is a more worldly, global, long-living theme and character, that's why he added that. And it works for me. I can understand why it might not work. It could get a little annoying, I imagine, but
agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree indeed.
Yeah.
My favorite thing, my favorite song in this movie is a kind of a callback to early, Man of Steel, but it's Superman Rising Part 2 or Superman Rising Part 2 in the soundtrack, but it is basically just a more rock version of the flight sequence, which is when he comes down and he says not impressed, and then he does the great action sequence against Steppenwolf. When that happened in first viewing, I was just about, I was standing up fighting with Superman as that happened, right? The sun was coming up as I mentioned, and I'm in that fight with them. I'm a part of the Justice League at this point. I feel like anything is possible when that soundtrack comes on. I listen to it when I'm at work, when I need to feel a boost of energy. It works for me on that level. And of course, right after that is at the speed of force, when the Flash goes into the Speed Force, and that the guitar work there, how it builds, how the Justice League theme comes into it, the crew at War Power, which again we can get to that in a second here. It's incredible. Again, when I watch this movie, I feel like anything is possible. I feel like it doesn't matter who you are. You're a band of misfits coming together. You have problems. But if you come together and you unite as one, us united, anything is possible. And again, it's the theme of this movie. If a group of fans that really don't like a certain cut of a movie come together and fight hard enough, you can get an incredible 4-hour director's cut, if you believe. And again, lastly, I'll talk with the crew at War Power. This is a wonderful Justice League theme. Again, the drum work in the background. I know Junkie XL is very much known for the catalog of drums that he has in his back pocket, which he's used, of course, when he worked on the Man of Steel score. He worked on BBS as well. He did Mad Max Fury Road, which again uses that same type of score sequence. This is a Justice League theme, and honestly, I can't remember a single bit of music from the 2017 version. It's really bland. The only thing I remember for it is recycling old themes, right? I don't think the Elfman theme works for Ben Affleck's Batman. That's not really fair. I don't think that the Superman 78 theme necessarily works for Henry Cavill's Superman. I love the two notes, the dun 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 dun, all that stuff. I love how it works for these characters. It's a part of this universe that is created, and I'm glad that Junkie XL also, who was fired from that first movie, when Zack left, he was fired from the movie, and then they brought on Whedon and Danny Elfman to round out the score. I'm glad that he also got to come back and finish this score and do what Zack did for finishing the movie, but I know he's had that lingering in his mind of like, okay, what would the theme have been? What does this mean for the story? And to recycle some of those old themes again, add some new ones, create ones for Cyborg, which I think is incredible. I love the music that swells when he's having the football scene, and then the scene later with his mother and how he's dealing with his new gifts and being this hero, or maybe he's not a hero. He doesn't know. He's deciding, but all that just culminates into this incredible epic soundtrack that I implore anybody that hasn't listened to it, just put it on. It's great background music and get you through a long afternoon if you need to. But that's really why I wanted to spend all my time, which is highlighting the great work by Junkie XL.
All right, who wants to follow that?
I will. Okay, because I got a little different thing on it, and I'm just gonna limit this to two things that I saw. Okay, and because there's a compare and contrast, it becomes very apparent what Zack Snyder, the themes that you're talking about, how much Zack understands them more. And I think in the very beginning, Josh Whedon's intro song after the Parademon and Batman scene, where he kind of starts to bring Superman's funeral and all that, and it's very James Bond soundtrack song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That very first song, I don't even know the name of it. I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm watching a James Bond movie, and it's this.
It's called Everybody Knows.
Yes. Right. And that even sounds like a James Bond theme song. And Everybody Knows.
It's a Leonard Cohen cover too. So.
And it's a great song. It sounded wonderful, but it's not the right place for Justice League. And I was like, this just took it into an entirely different theme. Felt like I was getting ready to watch James Bond or a Mission Impossible. And then Snyder has the Ancient Lamentations going, and it's kind of a haunting theme setting it up and some of that. And then the other thing, and I think this is where Snyder is the payoff on this. He understands those themes. Wonder Woman at the bank, standing on top watching, Whedon brings in, the moment we see Wonder Woman, he brings in her theme song. It's iconic, and it's in the background. It's not even that loud. he brings the theme song in, but there's other stuff mixed with it. And it's like he didn't realize the power of her theme song. I think besides the Superman theme song, hers is the most powerful, recognizable theme song of any of the supers in the DC universe, because that Batman versus Superman, when she got revealed with that song, I get chills every time I hear that song come. I mean, that's Wonder Woman. And he plays it there, but then he doesn't do it anywhere else, or it's so subtle in the background you can barely hear it. Zack Snyder does not play it there. He does not bring in Wonder Woman's theme song until she goes and starts stopping all the bullets, because she's saving the day. Now her theme song comes in, which is exactly how it got used in Batman versus Superman. And I think he's looking and making the connection. This theme song explains the character. She's a hero, not an intro. She saved Batman and Superman in Batman versus Superman, and we got that theme song, and we got chills, and then she's battling. And here, same thing. She saves that entire room of kids. Now she's battling. And then the other one, and I think this was a gross misuse of Superman's theme song. Pet Sematary in Joss Whedon's version, they play the Superman theme song. Dark Superman fighting the Justice League.
Yeah.
Not knowing who he is. Now I have Superman's theme song in there with Joss Whedon's version when he's fighting Barry in slow-mo. And I felt like this isn't the time to play that, because that's his hero theme. And here he's not the hero. He's I just woke up from being dead, and I'm angry, and I'm Pet Sematary, But then in Zack Snyder's version, you don't have that hero theme song playing. And I think that's because he understands that theme, the moment that comes on, that's got to be Superman's callback into that truth, justice, the American way, everything he stands for is coming up, and that's that theme. And so I think Zack, and I know he has guys doing this, that's him. He embodies that a little bit more of, it's not just the character, it's the director, and it's the choices and the music guys that they make. Those choices make the difference in the movie. Usually they're behind the scenes. You don't really know them unless, you're junkies like us, where we know these guys and what they're doing. Most people step back and don't pay attention to that. But when you have an intentionality in it and you see it, it's the difference between these two, which is why, Craig, I can't wait to take your course when you start teaching in college.
Nice. Justin.
Man, I'm just going to disagree with all these things. But specific, I feel like we have the same opinions, but I just, I gotta, mix it up a little bit. I actually had that on my list, that the scene where it's kind of showing people mourning all over the world for Superman. I missed the Everybody Knows song. I actually really liked that song in that part, because of what it set up tonally, and it didn't. Snyder's didn't have the same tone, but I liked that it set up the tone that we have this like the world needed him. He was not only like a symbol, he spent a good amount of time, helping people and making people feel safe. And just the lyrics to that song, a lot of the lyrics are just like, as humanity, we're screwed. Like, we have nothing going for us. And Superman was the answer for that. And I just don't feel like the score in there that they replaced it with hits quite the same, and like those scenes aren't as powerful. But that's just for me. Just for me.
I'm gonna push back on that.
Oh, okay, yeah,
perfect. I'm glad you brought it up again, because I didn't want to interrupt Corey. He was on a little bit of a roll. So, "Distant Sky" is the song that's playing. It's Nick Cave, and Snyder's obviously a huge Nick Cave fan. He's used lots of his music and lots of his movies. There's a line in there as she's walking to the monument that says, "They told us our gods would outlive us, but they lied." And like, it's, if anything, it's on the nose.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I just like, oh wow, because I had the subtitles on. I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's really calling it directly out what Lois is thinking at this point, and what the world is thinking at this point. So
that's, I don't know, that seemed a little too like esoteric for me, or like theoretical. Whereas the Everybody Knows song is more. Sorry, I had the lyrics up here. Everybody knows, or let's see. Let me find one that I guess. Oh man, all of these are not appropriate for this podcast. There's a lot of inappropriate lyrics in this.
I will say, I'm glad you brought up, Anthony, that it's an Leonard Cohen song, because that's also like
again
for a Snyder film. Big
which you
fan
get
of
at the
that.
end of this movie, which just Alison Crowe covered, which is also Auden, his daughter that passed away, his favorite song. So
Right.
But just saying that like our gods, everyone told us our gods would outlive us, as opposed to like the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, the deck is loaded, things like that. That seems more down to like the base level of humanity and like what Superman represented and who he was protecting. Like he didn't start off protecting the world from Zod and from Doomsday. Like he started off and spent most of his time, at least if the montages are to be believed, helping the little guy.
Right.
And I just
love
felt like
that
that
phrase.
song showed it better.
If the montages are to believed, and I do, I believe the montages.
Yeah.
It's
They are
fantastic.
canon.
Canon montages. I have to start with the Doppler effect of Superman's death scream from the beginning of the film.
Oh, yeah.
That's just so powerful and just echoing through the universe, and like the sound design in this film, I love it so much. The mother box's whirring, rattling sound, and then it's almost exactly the same sound when Cyborg moves. And I didn't catch it until this time. I was really listening for him. Like, of course he is. He's born from that. The boom tubes, love that effect so very much.
Did we lose that line? I think Steppenwolf in Whedon's version said, "You were born of them."
Yeah.
Does he say that in
He's
the
all
Snyderverse?
bambling about mother and you were born of the mother. Yeah.
Okay.
We do lose that. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
We did lose it. Okay.
Which I actually like that. We lost
Good
that.
Good catch. Of course, anytime I love the Man of Steel theme so very much. Anthony, I'm glad that you brought that up too. Like when you first time we see the Superman ship revealed at Star Labs, they're like,
it's the horns too. It's even it's a variation of it. Yes.
It's so good. And then like we talked about the scene where the camera's panning around, they're talking about bringing Superman back, and then the hologram pops up. The Cyborg projects a hologram, and then you hear the music, and then it cuts to black, because it's the end of that chapter. But just like I'm getting chills just thinking about that right now. There's the soft piano part of that song too, when Clark's at home in Smallville and kind of just thinking about how much she remembers being there. You get to hear Luther's theme from BVS again when they go back to Arkham, and of course I have to mention the Icelandic folk song, which goes on for like 5 minutes.
Oh, love it!
It's like 5 or 6 Bjorks there singing.
Yes.
I
smelling that sweater. You got to smell that sweater,
dude.
Oh,
hey,
man.
I would too.
Aquavelva is what that.
There's some great
Fish.
voiceover in this too,
like.
though. I did want to mention the voiceover. I really like Diana's voiceover with the mother boxes, the first battle with Darkseid. The Silas Stone, explaining Victor's true potential. That whole thing I think is just really powerful. But nothing's
was that plus his thing at the end too about continuing that.
Yeah. And then exactly. That's the wrap the film. But the Clark hearing his father's voices back to back. Oh man. With the music swelling, and then you get that shot that you described, Anthony, and the shot that I described, and like it just
hairs
works
on your neck
so very well.
Yes,
I love it. So inspiring. I love it. And anybody that doesn't think Snyder's films are inspiring, I don't understand. Like, did you watch the same film? Because it pays off for me. It's just like, yes, we've been on this journey, and it sucked that he died, and it's 2 hours into the film before Clark comes back,
and it's the same time when he died in BVS too.
Which is nuts. So
the other sounds that I love, because we're talking sound effects too, right? Like just the way they layer these in, is Steppenwolf's voice between the two.
Oh yeah,
is absolutely fitting in Snyder Cut and laughable in Whedon's version. It is not the same, and don't even on the armor and the view and how he looks is.
I would say his armor makes a sound too.
Yes.
I mean, it's just constantly ticking.
That nanotech of whatever it is, always ticking, and everything he gets, where he gets hit with arrows when he's fighting the Amazon, and just pops them out of the armor by. It's almost like
he just
flexed it, but the armor cut it and said, "Nah, this didn't get me. My armor stopped." It's little things like that he pays attention to. It's the whole setup in the battle that Diana narrates, and the electric bolts from a Zeus who looks amazing. Marvel,
Yes.
I'm sorry you did it injustice. I love Russell Crowe. No disrespect to him. I love him. But I mean, this was a Zeus that I was like, I could get behind this guy. And then to even see the guy that she fights in Wonder Woman right there, where he goes and brings the axe
Ares
down.
Yeah.
his scene is how he turns and fights and jumps at that is absolutely brilliant. But like, there's just the voices are completely different, and I think the dialogue of those voices made a difference. Steppenwolf in this Snyder cut is a villain conqueror from worlds that he has destroyed. The Steppenwolf in Whedon's version feels to me more like just a crazy Earthbound villains conversation. His voice.
You don't get
and
much
everything.
about him in Whedon's version.
He's a throwaway.
No.
He's just obsessed with mother boxes. He's bambling around mother.
Yeah, and he's just, you're gonna love me, and it's okay. Thanks a lot. You're Lex Luthor with horns. That's all you are. You're an Earthbound villain, not the conqueror coming from space with the deep booming voice. He's going to destroy everything.
Yeah.
Well,
Defenders. They failed 1,000 worlds before.
He has this greater motivation of like, I have to regain my honor. Like I
just want to go home.
He has a motivation, and he has a plot and a story behind him as well that they build up.
Yeah, like it builds up to a point where you're like, I know he's not going to give up. He is going to fight to the death because he has to.
You see what a difference the sound, the voice makes? This is where we're talking sound. It makes a difference to get that.
And his head getting squashed is a great sound too later in the movie.
Oh, I could not believe that sound.
Gosh dang, yes.
That just goes on for that goes
special
on for
delivery,
so
Darkseid.
There you go.
So
and Darkseid and his voice and
Ray Porter. Yeah.
Desaad's voice, the way that those pan together.
Guinness,
And I gotta love the special effects sound of their little communication thing that they use with that melting sparks falling all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love that. So
So this is a natural segue into performance. We already started talking about performance a little bit, which is fantastic. So we're going to start with dialogue because that's always the most fun. We'll see if we have time for two. I think we do. Anthony, give me one line of dialogue or conversation that you really liked.
Yeah. So I think Chris Terrio goes off on this movie. I think that's fair to say, like a man that can write 4 hours worth of movie. And it feels like honestly, this is great pacing to this movie, but I think the dialogue helps the pacing of this movie more than anything. It makes it feel to me like a 2-hour film instead of just a 4-hour film where I watch 2-hour films that feel like 4-hour films. I mean, it's incredible how he does this, but if I can, the phrase that I constantly think about is when Alfred is talking to Batman, they're having this conversation when they're about to bring back Superman from the dead. And he's like, your guilt's overcome your reason, right? That conversation and what's that? I might paraphrase this, so forgive me if I get this wrong, but don't wave the red cape if you don't want the charging bull coming back at you. And he's like, you do if it's this red cape, or to that end. And I just love what that means. Like I love what Alfred's doing in this movie too because of that. Like he's trying to be that voice of reason because Bruce for once in his life is acting on faith. Again, faith, Alfred, faith. Another great point in this movie. Again, something we may not have seen in another Batman to this point. But that whole dialogue sequence where Bruce is affirming his reasons for doing something, right? He's this first disciple, if you will, that's trying to bring back their great leader. He's done the best that he could to bring this team together. But Alfred is also trying to be a sense of realism. Like, again, if you do ignite this, you could get both Steppenwolf and you don't know what you're going to get if you get Superman back. He may not be the same person that you brought back that you thought before. So, again, if you can't bring down the charging bull, don't wave the red cape. That's it. I knew I had it up here, but
there it is.
Again, when he fights back, you do when it's this red cape. I just love the defiance and Ben Affleck. It's just a great Bruce Wayne. Again, Bruce Wayne in this movie is just as much of a pivotal character as Batman is because Bruce Wayne is the one going around recruiting all these characters rather than Batman itself.
Mm-hmm. Justin.
The one that stood out to me because it made me, I guess, enjoy a character of this movie quite a bit more was Ben Affleck's, or I guess Batman's line when they walk into the Batcave and he says, "Everybody, this is Alfred. I work for him." Mm-hmm. Which
that's badass, Alfred.
Nobody sees it that way, but I like that Batman introduces it that way because I never much cared for this Alfred. He seemed almost like too forceful and too rough and too pushy of Bruce. But if Bruce puts it that way, I work for him. I'm just like, oh, your relationship dynamic is not the same as the other Alfreds, which were kind of permissive and just did what Batman said. This is kind of the other way around.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I thought that was great. And no one really questions it. It's not really brought up later or anything like that. I thought that was fantastic.
Corey.
All right, I'm going to bring up the payoff word. Okay, it's one of my favorite things. Craig introduced me to several podcasts ago. The payoff, where you get a setup and it pays off later. I give it to you and introduce it. And Justin, you didn't even realize your comment right there was a payoff back to Justice League, where Ben Affleck, after going against Superman, turns around and they become buddies. He's going to go save Martha. He says, Alfred's been listening the whole time. I don't deserve you, Alfred. And he says, no, sir, you don't. Mm-hmm. And it's that ties. You get that. That's a payoff. That's a 2-movie payoff. I didn't even realize and think about it till Justin said it. I work for him. It is brilliance of Zack Snyder. Now, here's my payoff, because I think it's the same thing, is Barry Allen's relationship with Batman when he meets him in Batman versus Superman. And he says, what's your superpower again? And he says, I'm rich. And that whole tone comes back again in Justice League when he says, you have a satellite? And Ben Affleck, same tone, says, I have 6.
Yeah.
Like you have your own satellite? I got 6. And it's just the I'm rich. It's the same tone, the same. It's kind of the payoff of, I'm going back to this little punchline that I had here in Batman versus Superman. I bring it back in Justice League, and I liked it. So
something to go along with that, Corey. When Bruce Wayne first meets Aquaman, and Aquaman, pushes him against the wall, Bruce pulls out a stack of money to hand to him.
Yeah.
Like,
that is his
superpower. You got
superpower.
Super strength? Here's my money. Like, I'm rich. Like,
I'm rich.
So I should mention, like, when this episode drops, it's just going to come out Wednesday the 14th. It'll be right before The Flash, which is the closest thing we're going to get to a sequel to this film. And as much problems as Ezra Miller has had, and they are numerous, he's my favorite part in this film, other than when Superman shows up, which he's not in very much. And so most of the dialogue I wrote down are things that he says, and most of them, they're not really important, but they're hilarious. And I just love the whole interaction when he meets Wonder Woman, that whole scene. You must be Barry, I'm Diana. Hi, Barry, I'm Diana. That's not right. Just love that. And then freaking out. Oh, it's the bat signal. That's so cool. Just like, that's exactly what we would do if you were there.
Yeah, he definitely fanboys over him a little bit. Like, oh my gosh.
It reminds me a little bit of when in the MCU when Ant-Man meets Captain America.
Yeah.
It's still very much like,
thanks for thinking of me.
Thanks
Thanks.
You're cool. Oh, I know you. Yeah, that whole thing. That's just fun.
I know you too. You're great.
Yeah. We're running a little bit long. So does anybody have another one they want to throw in, or should we move on?
I do. I got one last quote that I think is great is because again, a payoff is Ben Affleck talking about the premonition with Wonder Woman that he had from the callback from Batman versus Superman. And he said, Barry Allen stood right here. And I love that because it kind of brings the connection along this line, along this trilogy. And then to see Cyborg get that same, he sees the nightmare scenario when they bring back Superman. Mm-hmm. And he actually says, wait, before Barry Allen takes off, or he says no. And Barry Allen says, go, and then takes off and then brings back Superman. And so in Snyder's version, you kind of have a hesitation there. And I think that's a great line of dialogue because it just shows, wait, I have doubt too now because of what I just saw. If we bring him back, this is what's going to happen. And I saw my premonition, Darkseid, and I saw Superman taking out everybody. So anyway, I just thought that was a great call back there.
Anybody have anything else for body language, facial expressions, or costumes, hair, makeup, anything that you want to point out that you thought was interesting? I have one or two things.
The Flash suit in this is okay. It's good. But can we just say that in the next movie, that Flash suit is beautiful? I mean, it looks amazing in the Flash that's going to drop when this airs.
I like this one. I mean, the other one looks good as well, but I like how this one looks like it's being held together with like cord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of a nice touch. I think costume design in general, man, I'm going to sound like such an MCU fanboy here. I don't like the costume design a ton. Obviously, I've said how much I like the Batman costume, but in terms of just like Aquaman's costume and Cyborg, like the way he is done, it's all very dark but like busy at the same time, and I don't appreciate it. It's like they
see that we get that great payoff with Aquaman in Aquaman movie when he gets the the traditional comic book suit.
That was Zack's point is he didn't want to take away from the other directors having a opinion on the suit overall.
I would have been fine though. Like I remember in the very first trailer, or maybe it was a trailer for a different movie, but the first time we saw Aquaman on screen, like we just saw him with his tattoos that kind of was a callback to his suit. And I honestly liked that. This suit, I was not a fan of. And Cyborg was far too busy. I like the general idea of like you can see his like power core coming from his chest, but he was just like so angular, and something about his movements just did not look fluid. I guess I wanted more simplicity. But that's a stylistic choice on my part, like an opinion.
Sure. Yeah.
Man, I'm really just negative on this. I promise I like this movie.
Goodness.
Great.
I really like the look that Bruce gives Aquaman when he speaks the Icelandic language right back to him, and he has that kind of eyebrows and the grin where he's like, "Yeah, I know what you were saying the entire time." I love that so very much. That's another one of his superpowers is his intelligence, right? And I so love the headbutts, the like Superman headbutts Wonder Woman. She heads him right back, headbutts him right back, and he like lifts up and just plows into the ground. It's just so good. I love it.
For me, we've already talked about I love the design for Steppenwolf. I mean, it's night and day from what was in the theatrical cut. That's horrendous that they let that on screen, in my opinion, in the 2017 version. Like, it clearly lines up with what we see in the communion sequence of BVS. And some body language. I love the Lex Luthor head nod when he knows that. I think he knows in his heart that Superman is dead. In the beginning of the movie. And for costume design, I absolutely love the Deathstroke costume. I think that is just gorgeous, and it's an absolute travesty that we didn't get that follow-up movie.
I just googled and then Whedon's Steppenwolf. I forgot how bad that was.
Oh yes.
Really, really bad.
And then I'm also going to bring in Darkseid, because this is fresh off. Yeah. Endgame had just come out. We all saw Thanos. We saw the big Titan. Darkseid and the Omega symbol on his chest, the Omega beams that we know he would have, his whole dark, gritty metal look, and everything about him makes Thanos look like a tiny Titan. I mean, it
does. Yeah.
It because fresh off Thanos, we're all thinking Thanos is the most powerful thing, and to see another Titan come in, we're all thinking, oh gosh, what are you going to do? He's going to look like
Darkseid doesn't need a glove.
And and him looking at Steppenwolf's head and squashing it down. That costume, that design, and his eyes on fire, and his throne that he's sitting on. Holy cow! I cannot believe we didn't get that movie.
He looks
how we walked away from that at DC, and to replace it with, I have no idea, James Gunn, I'm going to hold faith that you're going to do it, but how to walk away from what that could have been and look like with Henry Cavill fighting. I mean,
I know.
I wonder if we'll ever get that.
I shed tears.
Not.
I mean, I can't imagine they wouldn't at some point, if the new DCU is successful, that they don't build towards something big that could potentially have Darkseid in it again. I mean,
can't stop looking at
they'll
pictures.
redesign it.
This is so
because it's comic book accurate too. That's the thing. Like, he looks like he's ripped out of the comic book too.
Last thing I want to add too, but just for costume design, is I love the black suit choice for this movie and what it means for the arc of the characters. This was supposed to be a 5-film arc with Justice League 2 and 3 beyond that was supposed to conclude Superman's hero's journey, where he was going to rewear the blue suit again at a certain point. Right, we see him wear it later on when he's probably not in his most heroic form in the Nightmare sequence, and when he succumbed to the anti-life equation, and what we were supposed to see was him re-becoming the hero again that he believes he is, that we believe and know he is. But going through that character journey again would have been exciting to see, and I'm glad that they were using costume design to further illustrate that point.
Yeah. I think the costume design of the Joker in that Nightmare scenario was great too.
Oh, absolutely. Got that.
I was not a big fan of Jared Leto as a Joker, but I will say in that Nightmare scene with his wearing a police body armor,
a SWAT outfit.
I'm with all these supers, and here's the Joker with police body armor, SWAT outfit, and I'm thinking, man, this guy, and then he's fighting with them for whatever they're going into that we know is set it up for. But that costume design was great, and that acting right there, and that character of Jared Leto was one I would.
I need
pay
to know
money
more.
twice to
Like,
go
what
see.
possible reason could they be like, let's team up with the Joker? Tell me
So
more.
I can spoil if you want to
You
know.
do it, bring it.
Go for it.
So
We've seen the movie.
he's supposed to go steal the mother box for them that they will eventually use to power up the cosmic treadmill that will send the Flash back in time to tell Bruce about what we see in BVS. Just he'll say something different this time to change the timeline so that he isn't trying to actively kill Superman. So that's the whole purpose, is that the Joker theoretically can sneak through behind places and get through places sneakily without being detected. He's kind of a nuisance that way, as we all know, and that's the purpose he's serving.
How do you know this? Who are you who is so wise in the ways of science?
I will be honest, Zach, for a while after the movie came out, went on like a good lot of podcasts and video podcasts on YouTube and was sharing details left and right about things that would have happened in eventual sequels. And he's oddly enough changed his tune the last couple of months here about not being so coy about things that would have happened in the future.
Okay.
So
I hold
wink
out
wink
hope.
on that one, hopefully.
Yeah.
But
Be the
that was
timeline.
the plan at that time. Yeah.
Be the sacred
that's good.
timeline that we're on, please.
So let's move down to setting and design. So filmed a lot of real world locations: Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles. Filmed in Iceland, of course. Which is interesting. Bruce finding Aquaman in Iceland, not maybe just necessarily the place that you'd think to find him. I love that kind of that twist that happened.
It's where the King's Tide's at.
Yeah, got to go where that's at. And it apparently wasn't in Jamaica at the
So
time.
it's not in Costa Rica or Fiji.
He had to return the sweater to that girl.
Set decoration. The one thing I noticed this time that I don't think I'd really paid much attention to before is all the glass in the Batcave, where we've kind of just seen, like in the Keaton's film and in Bale's films, that there's just the rock, and we still have the rock, but it's enclosed with a glass. So it's like a much more modern, but you still have, because it's see-through, you can still see the cave that he's in. So I thought that was kind of an interesting choice. It's very utilitarian in there with all the metal shelving and whatnot, but it's also very modern at the same time.
I think when you come to set decoration, I think the big final battle is night and day between the Whedon's purple alien plants popping up versus what look like, I can only assume, nanotechnology and kind of armor building of a base world that Steppenwolf was building in Zack Snyder's version. It's just the coloring is different. Everything is different there, and works in Snyder's that doesn't work in. It's laughable a little bit when you compare the two. It's just laughable to see that purple version, and then the flowers that pop up at the end, the alien flowers that pop up in the end in Whedon's version. Just, they don't make sense. They're out of place, and they're just too campy, too cheesy.
Yeah, I also wanted to talk about just briefly Barry Allen's apartment and just how random it is, which I think speaks very much to his personality. That, I mean, there's been theories about, like, he acts the way he acts because because his brain is moving so quickly.
Yeah,
and so it's almost like he has like an ADHD, like a Speed Force infused ADHD, kind of thing.
I also enjoyed. I feel like I didn't count them. Maybe you guys are going to pull out a number like you did with the slow mo, but it shows Barry Allen eating much more often, because he tells you why he has to eat so much, but I feel like in Whedon's version you don't really see him eating except for when he says that line. But in this one, almost through most dialogue, he's chowing down on something.
He's a snack hole.
He's a snack hole. Yep. Yeah. For me, I think there's a prop that I love, which is the gauntlets that Batman wears now to help dissipate energy. And I like what that means too, is that, like, the character journey from BVS, being forced to face these greater, larger than life things and realizing that he's not really effective in the battle against Doomsday. And then taking that one step further to realizing, how can I be effective being smart, like we know Bruce Wayne is, and utilizing his brain and his wealth to good use.
Between BVS and this one too, we see, I feel like his machinery has grown exponentially. Like, he's just got beefier stuff, like that Nightcrawler machine, and then the
absolutely
ship,
and the Flying Fox
like,
too. Yep.
Yeah, that ship. Sorry, another criticism. I feel like they spent so much time on why that thing could not fly and it needed to fly. I'm like, I don't need to know the inner emotions of this ship, but here we are. That's
Flight's
just
its nature.
So I want to talk briefly about
okay,
the
go.
gauntlets just real fast, Anthony, because as you were talking, it made me realize something. So that's kind of his main thing that he's working on through this film, right? Is the gauntlets, which are a defensive weapon versus in BVS where he's spending so much time working on offensive weapons. So he can see that he's changed philosophically the way he's going to do combat.
Spent enough time dividing us.
Yeah.
So Corey, I interrupted you. What were you saying?
No, that was good. I think the one of the biggest props I think was that I absolutely love is Wonder Woman's sword in this one, because when she breaks Darkseid's axe, she does that big turnaround, hits the axe, and the axe shatters because Superman froze it. It worked, but after what I like in the moment it worked, I was like, okay, it was a definite slow-mo spin, scream, swing. But when you watch it in the Snyderverse where she cuts off Steppenwolf's head with it and then comes down and there's blood on that axe when she comes down with it, or on that sword when she comes down, that fit the character, the nature, the movie, the tone, everything. And then Steppenwolf's head sliding on the floor as a prop is absolutely brilliant, and getting squished, getting stepped on by Darkseid. So I think as a prop, all that paid off.
A couple of things that we don't really see in the theatrical cut too. The arrow of Artemis, I think, is really important. Like you get to see how they're bringing in the Themyscirans with that, and she holds it. And it also becomes like a key, which is I love that the set decoration down there too, with like the mural of Darkseid and the music's playing there. That's so cool. And then go back to your 5-film arc thing. That like the lowest pregnancy test, which is a plot thread that just gets eliminated. Well, except for there's one line at the end, right, where it's the whole like, how did you get the house back from the bank? I bought the bank. And then after that, there's one more line where he says, congratulations, by the way, alluding to the fact that.
And you see them moving baby stuff into the Kent farmhouse.
And that fits. That would have been such a good.
So we talked about character. We've been talking about characters a lot. Are there any characters or actors that we have not talked about that you guys want to make sure we?
I have to bring up the two difference, like the Flash and Cyborg getting their due in Snyderverse is tremendous. Cyborg gets a whole entire backstory. He was robbed in Whedon's version. Absolutely robbed horribly. And his character as a whole developed. He was nothing but a back place burner in Whedon's version. And I remember thinking the same time, because my son used to watch Teen Titans, and I was like, oh my gosh, Cyborg, Teen Titans. That's how I'm picturing this, right? He's goofy, he's corny.
Booyah.
And but you watch him in Snyderverse, he's a leader, he's a fighter. He is absolutely tremendous in this movie. And some of his lines and between him and his dad are just pivotal to this movie. And you see why he was so mad about getting cut out of this. And then the part with the Flash, I'm just going to wrap up with Barry. Barry is absolutely brilliant in here. And I'm going to say this from a logical standpoint of his going faster than the speed speed of light, because it makes sense to me. I teach science. This is true. It's got to be true. I've done the research. Okay. Pay attention. The payoff comes in when he brings Superman back to life. As he approaches the speed of light, he says, as things approach the speed of light, things are going to slow down. That slow motion Justin loves so much. When you hit the speed of light,
it makes sense there. I'm okay with it there.
But when you hit the speed of light, time stops. So if you logically follow that through, when you exceed the speed of light, it's going to reverse, right? Because it makes sense. Approaching, you slow down. Speed of light, you stop. Going past, you reverse time. And that's what Barry's doing. As he approaches, and this always bugged me, the mother box touched the water first. It always bugged me in the Whedon version because he said you have to touch it the moment it hits the water. And it was always in the water a little bit. In Snyder's version, it comes back out of the water to the moment that it touches. He actually went faster than the speed of time or the speed of light and reversed the time on it. And it was the setup to say, and Barry even made a comment when I approached the speed of light, I'm not supposed to do it. I'm not supposed to break that rule. And then at the end, he has to do it again. I got to go far above the speed of light. And that's what sets him up for such a huge character pull to say he saves the Justice League and the world. I mean, that was written out of the movie. And I don't know how you'd write that powerful scene out.
They
And
didn't
him
understand.
running-
Save those
They didn't
Russian
yeah.
people.
They
Exactly.
didn't. And him running and showing the world, just reassembling as he's running because he's reversing time by going above the speed of light is absolutely incredibly genius
Yeah,
for his
the
character
score
arc.
there. Oh my gosh.
And the chills I've got. I ended up coming home and I remember I was watching on YouTube all the clips that people were posting after that. Like, oh my gosh, I got to watch that scene one more time. And so I think as characters, the Flash and Cyborg, those two were completely robbed in Whedon's version.
All right, Corey, science teacher. I got some questions for you then. How is the Flash communicating while he is running at the speed of light? How is he talking through a radio?
It's very annoying for him to do that. He has to just, it's very annoying.
Like it's,
He has there's mechanical things that pick up make it go faster.
oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Batman must have developed that. Okay,
Batman.
And then
another question for Corey.
Oh.
One more. So my MVP Parademon, who shoots the Flash while he's running that fast. So is the Flash everywhere at once in that
Yes.
circle? So he could have
Yes.
shot anywhere
Yes.
and gotten him?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what gets him.
That is a huge problem for the
That's
Flash.
why it's across
If
his
you're
whole
moving
side.
so fast, you can just shoot anywhere and get the guy.
Well, don't run in circles. That's the
Don't run
problem.
in circles.
Don't run in
That's the-
circles.
don't
Exactly
run in
the
circles.
point.
That-
Yep.
That's the problem.
Oh,
Should've
that's why he
zigzagged.
zags so much when he's moving. That must be
Zigzag. See,
Yeah.
there you go.
The Flash
Yeah.
bolt
Okay.
is a zigzag. He didn't follow the pattern. I don't know
All
why.
right.
And then the other characters you got to introduce in here that they never get noticed. The original Jimmy from the original Superman movie, Jimmy Olsen,
Mhm.
is in Snyderverse and get a little conversation with him. It's nice to see that actor.
Yeah, he's
get
in
brought
both
back
versions, but in a different role.
but in a
Yeah.
different light in the
Yeah.
Snyderverse. And then at
Mark
the
McClure.
end, Ryan Choi was
Yeah.
introduced. We
The Atom.
could have had him,
I
right?
know.
We needed Silas to die and brings up Ryan to say he's in charge of Starlink. I mean, we could have had him. He would have been in Justice League 2 somehow or 3. We could have had him in there.
Zach was pushing for him to have his own movie.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I think it's a travesty we didn't get him because I think it would have that character, that guy was great. And I was like, I could see him in a movie. I want it. I'll watch it. And then Lex on the boat with Deathstroke. Deathstroke's aura, costume, those characters were side characters, I think, but given due that were cut out of Whedon's version.
Yeah, and Corey, I read that scene is actually supposed to be a lead into the Batfleck movie, is where
Yeah,
that was
it
going.
is.
It would have been.
So that's even more heartbreaking.
Oh,
Yeah. We have to talk about Harry Lennox
Mm-hmm. Martian
being
Manhunter.
revealed as the Martian Manhunter, which reframes everything he did in Man of Steel and BVS.
there's a
which is
TikTok
cool.
of him and Batman vs Superman where Superman gets up and breaks the handcuffs. Everybody steps back except for him.
Yep.
And was it intentional that Snyder did that? I don't know, but the whole point was that he was the Martian Manhunter and he could see, and he was, he's invincible himself. So he wasn't fearful of what Superman coming towards the screen, or is everybody else backing up? And so people pointed out, like, did Zack Snyder have that from the beginning?
It's kind of like the Obi-Wan telling, his reaction, telling the story of, what happened to Anakin, where he paused and the body language.
Yep.
Interesting. Anybody else? I think we've talked. The cast is huge. Joe Manganiello. I just wanted to say his name because it's hard to say.
Commissioner Gordon
Yeah.
is
J.K. Simmons.
J.K.
is great.
Simmons,
Every
Gosh, I
time
love
he's in.
him. And how can we get a cast like this again assembled? I mean, I'm sorry. I have to say it. This cast
I
was
know.
perfect. Who else are you going to get to play the Aquaman that I'm going to sit there and not make fun of? I mean, because the Big Bang Theory even made fun of Aquaman, right? With the costume, it's
You get
Aquaman.
someone so cool and so manly, it's impossible.
I will laugh at a gold and green costume for any other person except for Momoa. I will. I am telling you,
Mhm.
you will never get this cast again. Cavill, Batfleck. Oh my gosh! Sorry.
Corey's
All right.
freaking out. Okay.
All right. We're back. We're back.
Well, let's talk.
Cut this out, Craig.
It's okay.
No, I'm leaving it in. Mira has an English accent in this film.
Yes. Yep.
How do we feel about that? Is she just like putting on airs? I'm
cool.
going. That's
I'm cool with
how
it.
it works in my head canon. She's just putting on airs until she meets him the second time.
Yeah.
But I do love how the ending sets up Aquaman really, really well. Where he's like, "I'm gonna go see my dad," and I'm like, always like, "Oh yeah, that's how that's how the next one starts."
I will say kind of, because they don't really line up anymore because she mentions her parents, her dad's dead.
Right.
So it kind of misses up there. Also in Snyder's version, Aquaman's dad is dead too. And that's confirmed by both Zach and I don't know if anyone's seen the Tom Watts intro that they were going to do if this was a series instead of the movie, where Arthur is holding an urn, which is to represent his dad.
Oh wow.
So yes, although there are some hints, like she mentioned Steppenwolf in Aquaman, that's more referencing the 2017 version than Zack Snyder's Justice League. So he would be going to go see his grave in following this version rather than, and to make amends with that, and then go off to deal with Orm and all that stuff, whatever would have been the version of Aquaman that would have gone if it lined up with a Zack Snyder directed version of this movie.
Sure. And there are beats of that, like Willem Dafoe mentions the fact that Orm's already kind of started the whole I'm going to start a fight with
surface, all
surface,
that, yeah.
So yeah, you just kind of have to. There's a little bit of mental gymnastics you kind of have to do.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I'm totally fine with it. Aquaman has to fit this now.
There's another legend.
I know.
William Dafoe.
Point of view.
There you go. Let's see. Hero's Journey. When we talked about at length about Batman's redemption arc, that's real. That's on the back of the DVD. Fueled by his restored faith in humanity.
He's the first disciple.
Yeah, Superman becomes I love that. Becomes the character we're familiar with, and then this is the one we've been waiting for. Why can we not have more? It's so aggravating. I never had a problem with Man of Steel. I never had a problem with the BVS, but I don't think anyone had a problem with him in Justice League. Everyone wanted that version. And then it was there. Moment of silence.
How?
Yeah. So let's talk about final thoughts. Let's wrap up with some of our final thoughts on Zack Snyder's Justice League. Anthony, I'm going to come back to you, and then Justin, then Corey, and then I'll wrap.
Yeah, so obviously I love this movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. Not for just how great of a movie it is, but I think for me it's a lot of, I was so in the weeds about fighting for this movie to exist. I was there in the trenches, if you will, on Twitter, tweeting out the hashtags, following Zach on Vero, right? I got a Vero account, so I get up to date news and updates whenever he posts a new frame. And once the 2017 version came out and everyone was like, I don't think this is Zach, or, we were basically, very much told a different story than what Warner Brothers had wanted us to know about this movie, and his involvement, how he handpicked Whedon, that didn't happen. And now they're coming in to do minimal changes. So, you come out of the movie and you're like, man, that wasn't great at all, or at least that was my opinion on it. And then you start seeing the images come out, right? Zach's putting out these stills of characters that didn't exist. Iris West, another character we didn't talk about that isn't in the original, the theatrical cut of the movie. All these characters and in different scenes and different sequences. And you start to realize, man, what is out there? This exists. Zach clearly has a different movie out there. And then it's the fighting back and forth of, does it exist? What format does it exist in? And then of course when Zach dropped that massive bomb that was, is it real, does it exist, of course it exists, and he shows you the film canisters of it with the famous 214, which was the then theatrical cut of whatever Zack Snyder's Justice League is, which is about 3:30, which of course this movie's 4 hours, which we know he added more stuff that he was not necessarily in the original cut of this movie. He took some stuff out that was in the original cut of this movie. I know there's some jokes and stuff like that he was thrilled to get out of this movie. And of course he shot stuff in his driveway during COVID to add on to the nightmare sequence, and then to have Bruce with his further redemption arc with Martian Manhunter, to say that he's proud of him and all that stuff. Bruce now in the light, again, after what we went through with BVS. But, these characters are near and dear to my heart. I don't have a BVS poster on my wall just for no reason, right? This is stuff that is a part of me. I love the themes that were introduced in this story. I love the continuation of this story through Man of Steel, through BVS, through Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's just a culminating moment, and I'm so thrilled to have been somewhat a part of this in some way, shape, or form. And I hope that others, go out and watch this movie and can appreciate it for what it is. I'm so glad that Zach's got his day in the sun, and now that he's off doing some great stuff with Rebel Moon and Army of the Dead universe, I'm very excited for all that stuff. And lastly, I I just wanted to mention, of course, this film is shrouded in a tremendous tragedy with the loss of Zach's daughter, unfortunately, to suicide. So if anybody's out there, there's a world of support out there. If you need it, go search AFSP. If you can, please donate to them. They're a wonderful organization, and they go hand in hand with the Snyder Cut movement. Which feel free to reach out to them. They have resources and all that stuff, and a lot of stuff online that can help anybody out if they're in a dark time right now. You're not alone, right? You're not broken. You're not alone, as Cyborg says later in the movie. We're all together in this. We can get through this together. We can all be a Justice League. And that's really what my big takeaway from this movie is, that we are not alone. We can fight together as one. We can accomplish wonders. They too will join you in the sun.
Yeah. You make it so hard to follow.
I don't want to go next. Corey, you go next.
You know what? I would say from Whedon's version, Alfred making the comment after Batman says that wasn't the plan, and Alfred says, "No, this is the team."
Mhm.
That's the thought. That quote popped to my mind when you were talking about all the resources and everything. It's like, you know what, people? This is the team. It's together. So I think that's a good segue you put in there. So I'll follow that, though. I guess we gotta go. I mean, I got it. You can't have dead space like this in the airspace in here. So someone's got to step up. I'll go because nobody's going to remember the second one, right? See, that's how it works. Justin, they're going to go back to the third one and go, what did that guy talk about? So
hey, I deflect with humor, and now is not the time. I know what I'm called for.
I'm going to tell you, Snyder is a masterpiece. I think he is a brilliant director, talented beyond all things that you could think of. He is one of the most talented directors, I think, for any type of genre like this. And I will tell you this, Snyder is the template that other shows follow without admitting that they do. He has scenes from Batman versus Superman that pop straight. Batman's warehouse fight scene with a throat punch down to the ground, straight into the Mandalorian season 1, episode 1.
The warehouse fight scene. I got bingo.
I'm telling you what, Snyder, Superman walking, carrying the boat out of the ice, and you got Fat Thor getting healthy, doing the same thing. So it's the exact same shot for shot. Snyder is the template, and that's why, because he sets this up. He builds a story. He builds a universe that we can all jump in. And so I think his trilogy is perfection. I think he had a tale, a story, a setup, and all the payoffs to go along with it. Yes, he was distracted by tragedy, but it also showed the rallying of a fan base that people love this and need more of this story. And we got it. There's never enough. We will never get enough Snyderverse. As these characters and these real life actors age, it's the clock is ticking. We can't all avoid it. But I think just to get a little more taste of it when The Flash comes out will be brilliant. I think Snyderverse shows that just the arcs that were cut and the travesty that someone else taking over your vision can create is because Steppenwolf gets an arc, Cyborg, Flash, pivotal to the story. Alfred gets more screen time. And then just the way he drops into, hey, we could have several spin-off movies in this same universe with Deathstroke and Ryan Choi and Lex and the villain squad that he wants to make. And the fact that we'll never, ever get a resolution to Batman and the Joker in the nightmare scene is crushing. I would love to have seen that final fight happen. And then time gets rewritten. And okay, Batman, you don't have to, because I bet, oh my gosh, how I never got Ben Affleck to finish that line. So,
well,
I think this is
threat that he gives Joker.
Yes, because I need that threat fulfilled. I need to see what dark.
You got that right.
Because he even makes a comment: how many dead eyes can you look into, Batman, before you become dead inside yourself? And it's like, okay, he's there. He's there
a long time.
Exactly. And I would love to have seen how that wrapped up, but that's a different timeline. That's not ours. And so I think it's just great. I think it's a fan base thing. We all love it. I think this also is a great point to say, yes, this shows the power a director has and the power a soundtrack and the people that we don't see on the film, whose names and positions, power that they hold in moving the film forward, how much power they have to make a break a movie. It's not just he wasn't the right casted part for that role. It's the director and all of these people that make those small decisions, which is why I think my way of watching it, side by side, shot by shot, pausing one side and the other and watching them go, needs to be a college class. And Craig, as soon as you get it going, I'm telling you what, there's going to be papers, scientific papers written about this, Craig. I will be in the front row, the student, and I will pass that class with an A. So just waiting for you to do it, Craig.
Okay. Justin, deflect with humor.
No, I got serious things to say, Craig.
Okay.
I can be serious sometimes. So kind of just to go around what Corey said right there at the beginning, like this is a testament to the differences between directors. I don't think in my mind for a good chunk of my life, I didn't notice the differences and I didn't care about the differences and I didn't think there were differences in directors. But now I'm older and I know better. But seeing the same movie made twice with two separate directors is very interesting. And just the massive difference in theme and tone and storytelling and just character development. I mean, by default, you double the runtime of the movie, you're going to get more character development. But he didn't make it feel like a 4-hour movie. Like you're entertained the entire time until those lamentations start.
17 times. Yeah,
17 times. But no, as much as I feel like I was critical of it here, I do really, really like this movie. And Corey, I think I'm going to have to watch these side by side. Because right before the Snyder Cut came out, I watched the theatrical version. And I hadn't seen it in a while. And in watching it, I'm like, okay, this isn't as bad as I remember. But then after watching the Snyder Cut, I'm just like, oh, no. It was bad. It was pretty bad. And I'm happy the Snyder Cut exists because it restores my faith in the DCEU. And I know many of you on this podcast disagree with me, but there's just a lot of DCEU movies that I don't really enjoy, and I'll watch them, but I will still get my hopes up every single time and I will still see them. And I just hope I'm less disappointed like I was with the Snyder Cut. I was so much less disappointed.
If you do the side by side, Justin, I think the first 10 minutes and then just pick 2 or 3 scenes, because otherwise you'll be like I was. You'll run out of time.
Yeah,
I'll have to. My wife had to put the kids to bed. I'm like, yeah, I'm busy. You know, it's just too much. So you just got to pick the first 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes, and then you got to pick 3 or 4 scenes that you're like, I just want to see how the difference in those.
Yeah,
you know, because otherwise.
You got to put on noise-canceling headphones, tell her you have to go to the bathroom, and then you're in there for 4 hours.
Yeah. That's right.
That works. That works. I don't know. That's weird.
So,
all right, Craig.
Okay. So I don't have a whole lot to add. Just the fact that I still can't believe we have this movie. Like just watching this time, I just can't believe that it exists. Like all of the things that had to come together for this to work. I mentioned it before with COVID and the fact that, he was able to come. The fact that he gave him money to come back and do this, it's unbelievable. And then you've heard stories they've regretted doing that too. But
this
exists.
Makes me like believe in democracy more than voting.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Honestly, yes.
Right.
I feel like I have more of a voice because of this movie.
Yeah,
and he still trends every day on Twitter. Every day,
all the time. So the last thing I want to do is something hopefully kind of fun because we've alluded to it many, many times. If there's anything that you could have kept from the Justice League and put it into this one, and I have one, just one thing. If you could just pick one thing and put it back into Snyder Cut, what would you do? What would you keep? Justin.
I miss Superman's CGI face.
Oh no, you don't.
I miss it so much.
And his hands are CG too.
Oh
yeah, I mean, where are we if we don't have a fake Henry Cavill upper lip?
Stop.
Goodness gracious.
Like, who are we as people? Really?
At least Mission Impossible Fallout was amazing. So it's kind of worth it. Because that film is so great.
Can we get the arm cannons loading again?
We'll have to do that Mission
Impossible.
So, but my real answer is I really miss the nightmare sequence from Whedon's version. I really liked that quite a bit. We didn't get that in Snyder's.
What specific?
You all have confused faces. Did I?
Yeah,
I think it's the other way around.
Was it not in there? The one where the parademons attack his little encampment. right?
That's
in
are you-
BVS.
That's BBS.
Oh, hey, Craig, just cut that out. I
No, that's staying in.
It's in there.
Oh,
Staying in
no.
there.
I was waiting the whole movie. I'm like, when are they going to show that?
That's
You know what that is? That is part of the struggle of this, is that you get confused between the two
'Cause they
sometimes
fit
when you do
together
this.
so well.
They fit too well.
That's totally fine.
I just want to say that if Craig doesn't cut that out, deep fake voice technology has come a long way, and I didn't actually see it.
It's definitely staying in now. Corey,
All right.
go.
I got mine.
We'll come back to Justin.
The one scene from the Justice League that I would put in there is Aquaman's rambling when he's touching the truth lasso.
I know somebody was going to say that.
I absolutely love that. I think it gave us a side of Jason Momoa, I think, where he's talking and fit his character so well. And it also called to the point of why he says to Barry, "You're tripping over your feet," because in Snyderverse, they show Barry take out Aquaman when he's fighting Pet Cemetery Superman. He runs into Aquaman and they crash into the steps, and Aquaman points at him.
Yeah.
That did not happen in the Justice League, so that tripping over your feet comment didn't fit. And so I think that whole scene, and then just how he says to Barry, "If you tell anybody, you'll meet every piranha I know," is great. And they even pay that off a little bit, and then kind of in a little bit more inappropriate way with they pay off him talking to fish and stuff and in Peacemaker, and then but it also calls back to when Bruce Wayne said to him, "I hear you talk to fish," so
which is also not in the
which is in the Justice League. So
yeah. Anthony, did you have something that you would put back
Honestly, I'll be honest with you. I got nothing I want to add to this movie from that. If to quote Zach, he said if he had the choice of either adding something from that version or burning the Snyder cut to never be seen again, he would burn the Snyder cut.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I did not know he said that.
So the thing that if I can cheat a little bit, I want Zach to have the real Snyder cut, because there's a Snyder cut to the Snyder cut for those that aren't aware, which is actually he's filmed a Green Lantern scene in his driveway with Wayne T. Carr. Instead of having the Martian Manhunter come down to Bruce at the end, it's actually the Green Lantern that comes down and warns about Darkseid's arrival or impending arrival. So I would have that reinstated back into the movie. I mean, if you guys haven't seen the picture, it's this guy right here.
Yep.
Oh, this is an audio podcast.
I know. It doesn't work, but
just imagine it, people.
It's readily available.
It's there. Yeah, just search Wayne T. Carr. He's active on Twitter. He'll tell you all about it.
Yeah. Well, for me, the one thing, and because it was one of my favorite parts of the movie period, was when they go in underground under the harbor and they rescue the scientist, and Barry has the line where he tells Bruce, "I've never actually done combat. I just push people and run away." And then Batman's advice is just save one.
Yeah.
And then save another. But like, just to slow him down in that, I just thought that was just a great moment of leadership. And like, that just felt authentic. I really liked that teaching moment, kind of going back to what we talked about last week with the mentor figure. I thought that was just really kind of a cool section, and I missed that. And clearly wasn't Zach's, so it didn't belong, but that was one thing I was like, oh, I wish that would have been one of the things. So
that was good. That's the lesson from the movie, is that hero building right there.
So before we let Anthony go, which we need to get him out of here because he's been with us for a long time.
We could be here. We got 3 more hours of content we can talk about, Anthony.
That's right.
Let's take a break and come back for 2.5 more. Anthony, why don't you tell us what's going on with your podcast?
Yeah, so thanks, Craig, for having me on here and to talk about this incredible movie. Actually, I think this is how we became friends a year ago, is that we talked about this movie at Star Wars Celebration. So it's really a full circle throughout all of this. But yeah, so in my other time, I host a podcast called Force Coast Conversations. It's a cozy deep dive podcast into all things Star Wars, but we also branch out into other things Lucasfilm, so Willow, Indiana Jones, and we're currently on an Indiana Jones trek right now, going through all the films in anticipation of Dial of Destiny, which comes out at the end of June. So feel free to, if you're into that and you want to learn more about what we do as a podcast, just hit us up on all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, you name it. If it's a podcast site, we're probably on there. So just search Force Goes Conversations and you'll find us there. You can also follow us on all the social media channels too, if you want to continue the conversation. I'd be thrilled to chat more Snyderverse stuff with everybody, as well as Star Wars and other Lucasfilm things. So just Force Goes Pod on Twitter, and Hive, and then just search Force Ghost Conversations on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all that fun stuff. And you'll find us in one way, shape, or form.
Perfect. And we'll have some links for that in the show notes as well. So before we get out of here, we just want to say thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. If you want to connect with us, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook. Email us at readingbetweenreels@gmail.com. Use the SpeakPipe app on our website. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love it if you would support us by writing a review on your favorite podcast catcher. And we have another giveaway where today we're giving away a digital copy of Mission Impossible 4 Ghost Protocol.
Ooh.
All you had to do to enter was follow us on Instagram and like and comment on that Instagram post. The winner of this digital copy of Mission Impossible 4 is Aaron Harris from Star Wars Reactions. Congratulations, Aaron. We're going to be sending
Well
you that
done,
code.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Welcome to the team.
And this is the team. For our next contest, we're doing a series of Mission Impossible movies. This time, we're giving away a digital copy of Rogue Nation, Mission Impossible 5. For this one, all you got to do is follow us on Facebook this time. Like and comment on the featured Facebook contest announcement post by Tuesday, June 20th. And one last thing before we get out of here. Our next couple episodes are going to be a series of Star Wars discussions featuring my ELA class, which means that Anthony is going to be on the next episode as well.
Oh, nice. I didn't know they were recorded. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Surprise.
Surprise.
Yeah, they're going to be coming. So we're going to have, we'll have Anthony. We're going to have Brian Young. Aaron Harris is going to be on from Star Wars Reactions, like I mentioned. Ross Hollibin's going to be on. So Dennis Keithley. We're going to have, it's going to be, Jeff McGee's going to be on. So it's going to be a lot of fun.